35,000 feet, 6 miles above the Earth. And then, absolute silence. No thrust, no power. Both engines go entirely dead, transforming the plane into a massive, heavy metal glider, and you are still sitting inside it. The immediate assumption most people make is that without engine power, a commercial jet will simply fall out of the sky like a rock. But aviation engineers designed these specific machines to handle exactly this nightmare. A plane without engines does not plummet, it flies. This diagram illustrates exactly how that have a glide ratio of roughly 15:1. That means for every 1 foot it descends vertically, the lift generated by the wings pushes the aircraft 15 feet forward. If we apply that 15:1 ratio to a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, the math yields a surprising result. The plane suddenly has roughly 100 miles of forward glide range. That gives the aircraft a massive footprint to work with, usually encompassing multiple regional airports. Physics guarantees the aircraft can remain in the sky and travel significant distances without a single drop of fuel. The real variable, however, is whether humans can actually manage a crisis of this scale in the real world. In 1983, Air Canada Flight 143 suffered a major fuel exhaustion error mid-flight. The massive engine spooled down, completely losing power and leaving the crew in total silence high over the vast skies of Canada. The pilots leaned entirely on the aircraft's aerodynamic lift. Relying on that exact 15:1 glide ratio, they kept the nose at a precise pitch to maintain airspeed, trading their remaining altitude for forward momentum. Without a single working engine, the crew silently glided the massive Boeing 767 toward an abandoned airstrip in Gimli, Manitoba. They touched down safely, and all 69 people on board walked away without serious injury. The Gimli glider proved that aerodynamics alone can keep a heavy jet airborne, but it raises a critical engineering question. Modern airplanes steer using complex hydraulics and digital flight computers. When the engines die, the main generators die. How do pilots keep the electrical systems alive long enough to actually steer? We find the answer in the story of Air Transat Flight 236. In 2001, the passenger aircraft lost all of its fuel while flying over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, forcing the crew into a terrifying 19-minute descent with no engine power. The engineering crisis in this scenario is severe. The loss of the engines means an immediate loss of primary hydraulic and electrical power. Without a backup, the pilots wouldn't be able to steer the massive rudder, communicate with air traffic control, or even read their altitude dials. Looking at this 3D schematic of the aircraft's belly, we can see the emergency backup technology built for this exact crisis. It is a small device called the Ram Air Turbine, or RAT. The moment both engines shut down, a door opens and the RAT automatically deploys directly into the howling wind stream outside. As the plane moves, the oncoming air rapidly spins the RAT's propeller. This mechanical rotation generates just enough electrical and hydraulic power to keep the plane's most vital systems online. The autopilot goes offline, and the passenger cabin goes completely dark. But up in the cockpit, the flight controls remain fully active. Thanks to the power generated by the RAT, the pilots of Flight 236 maintained full control of the aircraft, successfully navigating their 19-minute unpowered glide to a safe landing on a military runway in the Azores. Mechanical backups keep the plane functioning, but they are only tools. Surviving a dual engine failure ultimately requires flawless execution by the flight crew under extreme time pressure. In 2009, U.S. Airways Flight 1549 struck a flock of geese just minutes after takeoff, destroying both engines at a dangerously low altitude. Inside the cockpit, pilots immediately begin a strict dual-engine failure checklist. Step 1 is finding and holding the exact optimal glide speed. Push the nose down too far, and you burn precious altitude. Pull the nose up too high, and the wings stall, dropping the aircraft. Steps 2 and 3 happen almost simultaneously. The pilots attempt an engine restart, either by using the aircraft's forward momentum to force the fan blades to spin, or by firing up an auxiliary generator in the tail. At the same time, they declare a mayday so air traffic control can clear the airspace and prep local runways. The final step is committing to a landing site. Knowing they lacked the altitude to reach any nearby runway, Captain Chesley Sullenberger made the immediate decision to put the jet down in the only clear space available, the middle of the Hudson River. All 155 people survived. We call it a miracle, but it was the direct result of a highly trained crew following strict protocol to override human panic. To put all of this into perspective, modern jet engines have a catastrophic failure rate of roughly 1 in 1 billion flight hours. They are rigorously tested and maintained to incredibly tight tolerances. Simultaneous mechanical failure of both engines is essentially unheard of. Historically, losing dual power requires a severe external anomaly, like outright fuel exhaustion, heavy bird strikes, or flying into a wall of dense volcanic ash that chokes out the turbines. Even if that ultra-rare anomaly occurs at 35,000 feet, the aircraft doesn't surrender to gravity. It instantly transitions into a highly capable, controllable glider. Every passenger is protected by the intersection of these forces, the immutable physics of the glide ratio, mechanical failsafes like the rat, and pilots who have already survived these exact scenarios 100 times in a simulator. Modern aviation represents the accumulation of a century's worth of safety redundancies, built to keep an aircraft controllable all the way to the ground. Understanding the science behind flying easily replaces fear with awe. If this video helped you understand the mechanics of flight a little better, hit subscribe. Next time, we are going back inside the cockpit to see exactly how pilots land heavy aircraft safely in complete zero-visibility fog. See you there!